a geek. Talking baseball every week. 'Cause they're Gleeman and the Geek.
And welcome to Gleeman the Geek, presented by Black Stack Brewing, family owned and operated at a liquor store near you. Lucky you. I'm John Bonos, the Twins Daily. With me, Aaron Gleeman of the Athletic.
Do you usually do the ad before you say who we are, or am I nuts? Did you just?
No, I always say that. No, I always do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Presented by Black Stack Brewing.
Yeah,
We got to give them their props.
it's true. And everybody knows who we are.
Yes. They keep the show free.
You don't need to find us in stores near you because you're already listening to us.
That's right, yes.
We should be in stores near you. Imagine there was just like a
big cardboard cutout, like...
No, I don't mean that. Like a cassette tape of us or something, like a CD of something.
You had it.
A MP3 of us. It's like, here's a sample
sold
of
at
this
the
show.
store.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be these last 30 seconds because I wouldn't draw anybody in. But that would be funny. Like, here's a sample of Twins Talk, 5 minutes. Put in your cart.
Instead of having like background music, they just have us talking about Twins for the whole time.
Yeah, well, people in the grocery store would love that.
They'd love
liquor
that.
store.
Sure.
It'd be fitting for the liquor store. That would actually
unless you're, say, Bailey Ober's wife, you probably don't want to be listening to this right now.
But I think Twins Talk at this point, again, would increase sales in liquor stores, maybe. Well, actually, let me get another sixer.
You're right.
The Minnesota Twins, blown out twice in 3 games by the Rangers, won the third game, or the middle game. They scored. The Rangers came into this series with the lowest scoring offense in the entire American League, and they scored 34 runs in 3 games, including 16 runs twice. Which I can't say I've seen that in a series. I can't say I'd want to ever see it again in a series. And Jonah Bride is now their most used reliever at this point of late, which is not a great sign. I mean, good for him, but. They've now, the Twins, they lose 2 of 3 to the Rangers at home. They've now lost 4 of the last 5 series. The only series win during that time is Sacramento, the A's.
Yeah. And
they are now 10-12 overall since the 13-game winning streak came to an end.
Yep. And they're still in the wild card spot.
Yeah. Well,
and second place is the AL Central.
That's gonna be true. I mean, it's gonna be real hard to lose too much ground in the wild card. But yeah, it's the pitching staff during that 22-game stretch where they're 10-12 has a 5.22 ERA. And we're going to talk a lot about the rotation, obviously, because it is a absolute mess at this point. In the span of 2 weeks, basically, less than 2 weeks, 10 days, I guess.
Gone from an awesome rotation that looked almost indestructible to...
Wow. Yeah, we're not dumb enough to actually think that. But yeah, I mean, they went from a rotation that had 4 solid performers plus 2 or 3 young guys that they felt like they kind of had stashed or ready to go, to now 2 solid performers, 1 young guy who's looked pretty good, 1 young guy who's looked pretty bad, and then a veteran in Bailey Ober that we're going to talk a lot about today probably, who looks very worrisome at this point.
Yes.
And I can talk about that. We talked to him after the game quite a bit, so we got some updates on that. None of them are real positive updates, but we'll talk about it. I was trying to think of like what were the highlights other than Jonah Bride's knuckleball during the 3-game series. I mean, Buxton has been great basically since coming back from the concussion a couple weeks ago, so we'll talk about that more too. But then Festa had a nice bounce back start in between there, having allowed 8 runs in his previous game when he jumped in to the rotation for Lopez and got knocked around, gave up 3 homers. There was all kinds of like, oh no, if he's not good, they're in real trouble. And I'm not saying everything's solved with David Festa, but and actually I didn't even think from a stuff standpoint, he was a little down, like his velocity and stuff. He wasn't getting huge swing and miss totals. He just pitched well, I thought.
Yes.
And he came back out for the 6th.
Well, it's hard to tell because the Rangers looked like a totally different team in 2 of those games than they've looked all year. You know, like him having success against a Rangers lineup which has struggled to score runs all year isn't especially encouraging thing. But then when they score 16 versus the other 2 guys, you're like, well, maybe they're hot right now.
I mean, Baldelli talked about this, and I will note that he talked about it before the first pitch of the series had been thrown, so it wasn't just him making excuses for the fact that they gave up 34 runs.
Sure.
He was asked about, like, this is a weird matchup because the Rangers have the number 1 pitching staff and the dead last number 15 out of 15 offense.
Right.
And he was like, that's fine. I know they've struggled a little bit, but look at the names in that lineup. And the names in that lineup are the same, basically, that had a good lineup last year and went to the World Series a couple years ago, a lot of them. So they've had injuries and some down years and stuff. So, I'm not making excuses either for them giving up 34. I'm more saying, I don't think that's the worst lineup in the American League.
Right.
I don't know that that's even a worse lineup than the Twins lineup necessarily. Like, if you're just going to take one of them for the next 90 whatever games are left in the season, I'd probably take Texas at this point. Not that that's saying a whole lot compared to the Twins lineup. But we should also, before we get into like some actual topics here, 2 notes for people thinking about signing up for the Patreon version of this show, which we do Monday and Wednesday, typically every week. Exclusive, commercial-free episodes for Patreon subscribers. It's Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. It's like $2 a week. You get at least 2 episodes a week. We had Betsy Helfand of the Pioneer Press, on as a guest on Wednesday. Very fun show.
Yes, it was.
Talked a lot of Twin stuff, but also talked about a lot of other BS. That was fun. And she met John's dog, Rosa.
That's right.
Who's currently sitting on the couch with a chew toy or chew toys. So that was a good episode if you want to hear that. We talked about some... I always like... even sometimes if we hit on the similar topics that you and I discuss, to bring a third voice in.
Yes.
If only to be like, you guys are nuts on this. Or,
right.
or like, did you think of this angle, which she did a couple times when we were talking about that. But we also we love Betsy.
Yes,
She's a great guest, great person. Yes. We talked about a lot of goofy stuff with her that she's always game to discuss. So yeah, good show. And then also, we've been doing more bonus content. Both ways, bonus and bonus. This one, which John tested out our new video capabilities, which you may be seeing more of soon, and did a review of your trip to Coors Field in Colorado.
Basically 15 minutes of what to do or what not to do in Denver. Yeah.
And I started watching it, and you'll see we got a new video opening with theme and all that. And we got a few bells and whistles, but we're going to be adding some more. And it was fun. I started watching, and John's like, he's got a map up on the screen, and he's like, he's really... This is Becky has a theory about you that it takes you 35 minutes to become an expert on something in terms of like a new bar you like, Coors Field. Because I was showing her the video, and she goes, "Yeah, of course, Botus has got a map out. He's saying go to this place, not this place. You park here, you walk in here." And it's like, she was like, "How many times has he been to Coors Field?" And I'm like, "I think just the once."
No,
I don't know.
I've been there lots of times.
I know, but
that's right.
That's her,
yes.
Because she will ask you questions about things of stuff you've experienced one more time than her.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, "Yeah, here's what you want to do. This is what John always, here's what you want to do. Here's what he always does." And I believe him. There's something about John. He takes it in with the enthusiasm of life, which I do not possess.
That's right, yeah.
And comes away from it as like, "Oh yeah, well, we went there once. The best bartender there is so-and-so." It's like, "How many times have you been there?" "Oh, we were there for an hour and a half." So anyway, you did your review of Coors, tested out the video stuff.
If you are planning on going to Denver in mid-July, which is when the Twins, right out of the All-Star break, the Twins are visiting Denver, right? That's the first weekend series after the All-Star break. You probably want to just go check that out.
Yes. Okay, let's get into, I guess probably the Ober and rotation topic is the biggest one, unfortunately. Right. So since the last free show, Pablo Lopez was already hurt by the time we did the last show a week ago. But then since then, Zebby Matthews gets shut down with also a shoulder strain, slightly different, subscapularis. I know I'm saying it wrong, but it's a more rotator cuff area as opposed to the lat or a teres major area, which is Lopez. Lopez expected to miss 8 to 12 weeks, which puts him mid to late August, early September type of range. They haven't really put a timeline out on Zebby, but he's been shut down completely for 2 weeks from doing anything.
Right.
You can do the math on it. It's a moderate strain, although moderate, which was also Lopez was a moderate strain,
right.
But these are different enough that moderate isn't quite as bad in terms of a timeline theoretically, but we're still looking at least a month.
Yeah, you're thinking at least 4 to 8, something like that.
And, that takes him basically through the All-Star break. So I would not expect to see Lopez until at least mid-August, and I wouldn't expect to see Zebby Matthews until the second half of the season.
Sure.
And, we've already seen now Festa jumps back into the rotation to replace Lopez, and then Simeon Woods-Richardson jumps back into the rotation after only 3 starts at AAA to replace Matthews.
Right.
Simeon's first start went very, very badly.
Festa's first start went pretty badly, too, actually, but then his second one.
Then he bounces back and looks good. But now so that takes a big chunk out of both the quality and the quantity of the rotation, the depth of the rotation. I mean, Lopez is their best pitcher,
right?
In my opinion. Joe Ryan's got an argument there too, obviously. But you lose your number 1 or number 2, whatever, one of your playoff caliber starters. That's going to be huge, and he was pitching well this season too. And he's also just one of the guys that you can count on to go 6 most games, and sometimes 7, sometimes 8 from like a workload going to the bullpen standpoint. Right. That's also big. Zebby it's not like he had gotten on some great roll, but over his previous 2 or 3 starts, he had shown some promise. He had the game in Seattle where he had a horrible first inning and then threw 6 shutout and looked good. And then the game in Sacramento against the A's, he throws 5 innings and 1-run ball, which is one of his most successful starts. Right. Turns out he was pitching hurt in both of those, right. With at least soreness. I don't want to say injured or hurt, but he complained of shoulder soreness or discomfort, I guess they would call it, while throwing a between starts bullpen session in Tampa at the beginning of the 10-game road trip, then pitched in Seattle, then pitched in Sacramento. And honestly, those were 2 of his better back-to-back starts, or at least most encouraging back-to-back starts. But then during the A's start, he just didn't feel right. And then when he got back home after the road trip, they put him through some more tests and sent him for an MRI and shut him down. So that's enough, a big enough chunk taken out of the quality and the depth of the rotation. But now, Bailey Ober, who is one of their most dependable veterans over the last 4 years, really.
Yeah, he's been the closest thing they sort of have to a horse, almost.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Is now a huge question mark because yesterday was the 3rd consecutive start he's made where his velocity was way down. He wasn't throwing strikes. I thought he reminded me a little of the Chris Archer situation a few years ago when he had a hip injury where he kept falling off the mound and he was off balance on a bunch of throws. I've never seen Bailey Ober, kind of short arm or skip as many throws as he did yesterday. And I mean, he gave up a career high 4 homers. Right. 7 runs.
He had 7 home runs in those three outings. That's been one of the
things. To me, the biggest red flag that this isn't just a bad stretch, something is wrong with this pitcher is 6 walks yesterday.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, he goes months.
Yes.
He often goes a month without walking 6 guys. Not only was that a career high, he had never walked more than 4 guys in a game before, and had only walked more than 3 guys in a game before once. Right. And he's handing out 6 walks, and he was just missing the zone. Like I said, he was falling off the mound. And so we talked on the Patreon last couple episodes because after his previous start, when he was throwing, he averaged 89.3 on his fastball, which is a career low. We asked him, what's up? And he said what he also said when he dealt with this during spring training at the time, which is a week ago. He said, it's mechanics. My mechanics are completely out of whack. And, he's 6'9". He's had mechanics issues before. It's a big thing to keep him sort of streamlined because he's not a guy who throws 98. He's a guy who needs everything kind of clicking and working smoothly to get 93, 94.
Right.
And when it's not, he's 88, 89, 90. And he's a good enough pitcher, and he typically has good enough control. I was gonna say,
usually the control is the savior.
To at least be functional at 89, which is a big credit to him because there isn't more than a dozen pitchers in baseball who can, in 2025, against these hitters, can be functional at 89. But then we saw even that kind of abandon him yesterday. Yep. And yesterday, post-game, he finally kind of publicly said what there had been some talk about, which is that he has a hip problem. Left hip that's been bothering him since spring training. And, he didn't really call it an injury. And Baldelli actually kind of went out of his way to say it's not an injury. It's just something he needs to have maintenance work on, basically. But he's been getting almost daily treatment for 3 months now on this. And, regardless of what you want to call it, it's clearly affecting his performance. Well, so what's the difference, semantically of what you want to phrase it? I asked him post game, like, do you feel that this is something you should and could continue to pitch through versus skipping a start or, going on the IL for 3 weeks or something like that, which they have done with other pitchers before. And he was adamant, like, I'll continue to pitch through it. I can work through this. And Baldelli, I thought I could maybe read a couple quotes, but Baldelli was even more adamant, basically saying, like, this isn't to blame, which I get you don't want to make excuses and you don't want to do all that. But clearly, whatever is going on with him physically is to blame. Now, if you want to say it's not the hip, that he has a hip problem and this is just coincidental that his mechanics are out of whack and all that, but I think it's all tied together. And this doesn't, mean you have to shut him down for 6 months. But I just wonder. It's one thing going back like 2 or 3 starts with him where something was clearly not right with him. He's throwing 89 miles an hour, but for the most part, he was effective enough to at least be a 5th starter type.
Sure.
But it based on yesterday when it just completely fell apart. I mean, he was giving up rockets. Although he couldn't throw strikes.
To be fair, it does just sometimes with Ober when it falls apart, it really falls apart. We've seen that from throughout his career.
Not really, other than first starts of the season.
Well, that's true. I mean, the first start of the season.
Prior to this stretch, 2 of the 3 worst starts of his career were the opening start of the past 2 seasons. So, I guess like. I'll say what I say about a lot of situations like this. It's like we talked about with Royce Lewis, different scenario. But if you're not helping the team, and I think it's getting harder to argue that he is helping the team, although we can discuss the potential replacements.
Exactly right.
And that makes it tricky too.
Right.
But also, are you helping Bailey Ober? Like, is this a situation where, he could keep pitching? Like, he's not in excruciating pain and he's not going to, die out on the mound or something.
Sure.
But if he's not effective, and it doesn't seem to be getting better in the sense that it's a spring training issue that's lingered now for, 3 months, more than that.
Yeah. And it definitely trending downward.
Yes, it's not like he's sees the finish line here and he's almost over it. Right. And so I wonder, like, but also I don't know enough about this to know because they just revealed this a couple days ago. Is this a situation where 3 weeks off would even do any good? Or is this we need an off season to...
And, I mean... We know that it's been bothering him since spring training. It's not like he was ineffective for the most of April and most of May.
That's what the point he
part
made
of it, right? It was like
yesterday post game.
I know I can pitch through this because I've been pitching through this.
Yes, he goes. I had 5 straight quality starts. His exact wording in late April, early May,
right.
And I'll take that a step further. 2 weeks ago, prior to these last 3 starts, when his velocity's been way down, he had a 3.41 ERA for the season, which is typical Bailey Ober. Now. Right. Within
and that's after having a miserable first outing.
Right. But I will say within that, the 3.41 ERA, which is right in line with his career numbers he had prior to this last stretch, he had like a 3.70 career ERA. Sure. So 3.40 is great. I mean, there's no problems with that. But we had talked about, even before I knew this mechanic stuff, we had a whole conversation maybe a month plus ago about this is worth watching because he's striking out 7 guys per 9 innings instead of 9.5 guys per 9 innings. And there's usually a reason for that. And it took a while to kind of show itself more. But it's unfortunate because, I give him credit for answering questions about this in a meaningful way. Some pitchers would just kind of be like, I'll be fine. He talked about a lot of stuff. No, that doesn't make it better, obviously. But I do feel for him because it's clear, and you could see his body language yesterday. He's giving up these bombs, and it's just like, what am I supposed to do? His thing he kept saying over and over is, I'm trying to just go out there and compete. Right. Like, I'm trying to get through this. And I don't know. They both seemed pretty adamant afterward. Now, this was in the moment. This was seconds after the final out of the game. That he's going to continue to pitch through this, that they feel like there is a light at the end of this tunnel, that he is making, at least behind the scenes, strides, even if his actual performance on the mound has trended, like you said, in the wrong direction. But it's bad just in general because he's been so good and so consistently valuable for the Twins, but it's particularly bad in this moment because they just lost Lopez, they just lost Zebby Matthews. Regardless of whether they shut down Ober or he continues to struggle, that's another big chunk taken out of the rotation, and their depth was legit coming into the season, but no team has the depth to withstand losing 3 fifths, or at least losing 2 fifths and then having a third guy kind of a huge question mark of the rotation in a 10-day span. Nobody has the depth for that. They had the depth to first put Zebby in for Simeon,
Right.
then put Festa in, who's a major league caliber starter. That's
Right.
great depth. And then to be able to turn back to Simeon Woods Richardson is some level of depth. But
Right.
I mean, at this point, that's it. Like, what is there? And it's probably, if Ober were to be shut down, you're looking at Andrew Morris, maybe,
Right.
he hasn't even been added to the 40-man roster. He's a solid prospect. He also has been a little mediocre, I would say, at AAA so far, which is no great crime or anything. But
it's his first time at AAA.
right. It's not like he's been, kicking down the door to the majors, but could certainly be a functional back of the rotation guy if needed. They could also do something like bring back
Dobnik?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the options, I guess. But think of it this way: they've called up Randy Dobnik a few times over the last couple of years just because it's like a free square.
Right. That's right.
Like
Yeah,
you can
right.
add him and then subtract him because the contract shields him from waivers. You can just. They haven't started him during that time. They've just called him up to soak up, relief innings.
Exactly.
It's a whole other thing to
Yes,
add
of
him to
course.
the rotation. He hasn't. God love Randy Dobnik. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. But he has not pitched well even at AAA for 3 years
But
now.
the point is, once you get beyond Morris, you kind of run out of the prospects that have upside, and now you're kind of going to the veterans 4A
Right.
guys or AAA guys that are hoping for a spot somewhere on a roster where they can prove themselves to be middle relievers.
And part of the problem is that a couple of the prospects they have at AAA, Marco Raya and Corey Lewis, I think Lewis is shut down, and Raya, he pitched okay last time, but he's got a 8-something ERA.
Right, yeah.
He's just not making any sort of case for it. Right. Andrew Morris has been solid. My presumption is he would be the call up if something were need to replace Ober. But you could also do something, at least if it's like we're shutting down Ober for 2 starts or something.
Right.
You could call back up Travis Adams and have him pitch 3 or 4 innings.
Right.
Maybe piggyback him with like Joey Wentz, who we're going to talk about in a second, who they just claimed off waivers as a former starter and now a long reliever. There are some things you could do to get through it if it's 2 or 3 weeks without Ober. But none of them are great because you're on your 8th starter now.
Right.
Like no team is going to have 12 good starters. Like that's just not how it's going to work. So it's a worry. I mean, it's a worry whether he keeps pitching. It's a worry if he gets shut down because you need a replacement. And it's, magnified by the fact that they already have Simeon Woods Richardson and Festa in the rotation who are, going to be inconsistent, who are not going to be eating 7 innings at a time, even in good starts very often. And now they're in a spot where, Joe Ryan has been good and consistent pretty much the whole season. I feel good about him at the top.
Right.
And now Chris Paddock is basically their number 2 starter.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from how good Paddock has pitched over the last, couple of months here.
He's been pitching like a number 2 starter.
But
right.
He hasn't thrown 125 innings in a season in 6 years or whatever. Like, so even kind of being able to count on him to carry weight here from a, quality standpoint, but a quantity standpoint too, that's a big question mark that you hope you don't have to deal with. They're going to have to rely on him. They have no other choice. So, honestly, if they would have had a healthy functioning rotation, I think you may have seen them, push back Paddock when possible or skip him a couple times when the schedule allowed it to keep his workload. Well, that's out the window. I mean, they just need him to take the ball now every 5 days and give him 5 or 6 innings because they just need the help.
Yep.
So that's where the rotation is. And in the span of 2 weeks, like you said a minute ago, it's gone from probably the biggest strength on the entire team.
Oh, for sure.
And one of the strongest, rotations in the American League, top to bottom, including the AAA depth at the time, to now just question mark filled.
Yeah. I don't know that it's a below average rotation right now, but you're talking about certainly sort of it's fallen down to average. You've got a point where you've got you sort of have a guy who looks kind of like a number 1 guy, kind of another guy who looks kind of like a number 2 guy, and then 3, 4, 5.
I mean, it's not a below average rotation if Ober pitches like Ober, but it definitely is a below average rotation if Ober pitches like what we've seen, and Simeon Woods Richardson struggles in the bottom spot. I mean, it drops off quick.
We need to see some bounce back similar to the Festa bounce back we saw this week. Is what we need to see.
I mean, my worry with him is just Festa just has like clearly significantly more upside now and in the future. And so, we've seen the good version of Woods Richardson last year in the first half. I'm not saying he's not capable of being a solid major league pitcher, but, Festa's floor is kind of near his ceiling probably.
Maybe.
And so when Festa has a bounce back start, you can start to dream on a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Simeon's got, although really the other thing is there's no, and maybe this can be good as much as it can be a negative. It can be a positive, I suppose. But, you know, Festa and Simeon with Richardson, there's no real day-to-day start-to-start pressure on them. Like,
well,
what's the option? Like, if Festa goes out there and gives up 5 runs, it's not like they're going to go, you know what, you got 3 starts, 2 of them were bad, we're bumping you. Bumping them for who?
Right,
and if, you know, look, if he gives up 8 runs in games, he's going to get bumped.
Right,
but if he is just semi-functional, you know, going 4 2/3 and allowing 3 or 4 runs, you almost have to live with that.
Sure.
And, you know, like we always talk about the rotation, the rotation itself is huge, and, you know, the swing in performance and value is huge, but it also has like a, you know, bleed over domino effect with the bullpen.
Yes.
And that is the bigger worry, is like the bullpen has been pretty good now for quite a while. It's deep. There's tons of righties. They got Coulomb back from the left side. But it, for the most part, has looked good during a stretch when Pablo was going 6, Paddock was going 6, Ober was pretty solid, Joe Ryan was going 6, and the 5th spot was, you know, will the bullpen continue to look as good when there's, you know, they're covering another 5 innings per week?
They certainly have it 2 out of the last 3 games.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean,
you get the short start and suddenly you're
right.
And I mean, this also comes back to 2 weeks ago. We were talking about, hey, we've got all these bats coming back to the lineup. We just need the, you know, but you also got to be careful that the pitching holds up and is good, and then we can see what this team can do. Well, now it's pitching staff carried this team for first 2 months of this season. It's time the lineup actually start carrying sharing some of the load.
I don't know that they're capable.
I'm not that they're going to carry this team, but they've got to start sharing some of the load on there. Like, you've got to start having an above average offense if you're going to have average pitching, and that's what they're.
Good luck.
Yep.
I don't see it. I really don't see it with this group. I don't think they're nearly consistent enough. I don't really think they have the pieces in terms of like functionality, in terms of playing matchups and platooning and all that stuff. They just have a lot of weird parts that are sort of duplicative. And, you know, go back 2 years, one of the reasons it clicked was that they had a bunch of lefties who hit righties, and they had a bunch of righties who hit lefties, and you could merge them role wise and platoon them and mix them and match them, and they don't have that anymore. They got a guy. Their bench is just filled with bench guys, not, you know, platoon guys and all that. So yes, it can be better than we've seen. Yeah, two-way player Jonah Bride.
That's it.
But yeah, I mean, this is what we kind of joked about before these injuries and issues started hitting the rotation, which is there's always a tendency from like a fan standpoint to be like, okay, the pitching's really good. Now all we need is for the lineup to become decent.
Right.
Yes, if the pitching stays good, that's what you need. But you can't just lock one in on a positive note and say the pitching is going to stay good, and then not lock in the lineup as bad and think like these things ebb and flow independent of each other. Yeah. And that's unfortunately what we've seen, because now
we need that lineup to start ebbing.
Right. Wait, ebb and flow. Yeah, I don't know which is which. Whatever. The good one of those. You know, I'm very marine based. Yeah, because that's what that is, right?
Yeah,
it's based on tides or something. So. Yeah, you know me, I'm a water expert.
Yeah, you're all about the tides.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, I don't know. I mean, the rotation, I don't want to overplay the idea that it's like a complete mess or something. Sure. They still have some good pitchers. They still have some guys in Festa particularly who's unproven yet clearly has immediate upside if things can click for him. Yeah. Joe Ryan is still one of the best starters in the league. You know, Chris Paddock for 2 months now has looked like one of the best starters in the league. I'm not trying to act like this is some, 10 years ago Twins rotation that's just a pure dumpster fire with, Samuel DeDuno and Johan Pino. And I mean, there's still some talent here, but the Ober situation in particular worries me, because I think they clearly are trying to play this out with him in a way that is like, this is going to solve itself kind of on the fly. In other words, he's going to continue to get treatment on the hip. He's going to continue to put in all this work between starts and work on his mechanics and work on different ideas that he can kind of compensate for the lower velocity and all that. and we're going to come out the other end here in 3 weeks or a month or whatever, and he's going to look like himself. And, I would love that to be the case. But when have we ever seen that with the Twins or otherwise? I mean, when have we ever seen a pitcher and, sat there a month later and go, oh, yeah, remember he had a rough 3 stretches where he was throwing 89 miles an hour. I guess that solved itself, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that seems fanciful, wishful. I mean, but we'll see.
Here's what I would say about that. We kind of felt that way after the first start of the year because his last couple of starts in spring training were down a little bit. Then that first start was down a little bit, and then he was good for another 6-7 weeks.
Now where are we with him?
Well,
same issue he's had in spring. That's my point.
There's going to be ebbs and flows.
Okay, yeah, ebbs and flows. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I'd wanted a note on the bad hip. Yeah, that might be it. I think, the Matthews thing, I mean, it says a lot about the rotation depth that he's even viewed as like a loss because you go back 3 weeks and he had no track record of success in the majors, but he at least had upside. And I think that's part of the problem. I don't think the rotation is a complete mess, but the problem is now, Wood Richardson doesn't have tremendous upside. He's hoping to kind of tread water, give them 4 or 5 innings, not blow up games and all that. And as we talked about, if you were forced to replace Ober, none of those guys have tremendous upside. I mean, Morris has some upside, but like a Dobnik type or someone like that.
Coggin.
Yeah, I mean, they have really no upside. Right. And that's the worry. It's not so much the immediate competency that you can pull out of some of these guys. It's like, other than Festa, they don't have a whole lot of the replacement crew who, after 3 or 4 starts, you might go, oh, like he's actually good. Yeah. He's not going to go anywhere. It really is more of a, kind of piece this together until someone returns.
That's right.
But the problem is, Matthews might be the first one to return, and he's going to be second half.
Yeah, right.
And, if things go very well with Lopez, he's maybe returning for the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. So they're going to have to make do with this group for quite a while. I mean, we're talking weeks and weeks here.
Yep.
Or they're going to have to make a move for somebody at some point. And we're still, 5 weeks, 6 weeks from the trade deadline.
Yes, right.
I did see
more than that.
Aaron Savale, who used to be on the Guardians and is now on the Brewers, got bumped from the Brewers rotation and requested a trade. And it's not like he's pitched brilliantly or something, but
he didn't get bumped because he was too good for the Brewers rotation.
Although the Brewers have some good pitching, but he's at least has a track record of being a competent 4th starter type of guy, and coming from Cleveland, they have a fetish for Cleveland because Falvey's from Cleveland and all that, and also he was in Tampa Bay, which they have a fetish for Tampa Bay. I guess what I mean by that is there's a lot of overlap between the things Cleveland and Tampa Bay look for in pitchers and the things the Twins look for in pitchers.
Yeah, fair.
So if you really felt like Ober was a bigger question mark than maybe they're letting on, or you just felt like we can't have Simeon go out there and struggle over and over, something like that has presented itself as an earlier than deadline move if you wanted to try to make it.
Yeah.
But I have no sense that they're involved there. I saw that and I was like, well, okay, that would be one of the mid-June options as opposed to the mid-July or late July options on that. Before we talk about some other stuff, including a new pitcher joining the team, let's talk about our presenting sponsor, which is Black Stack.
Black Stack Brewing, a fantastic beer, especially on the days when you've got a 4-hour game where your team is losing by 16 runs.
You have a lot of experience with this now, John. So guess what? Another thing you're an expert on.
That's right. I actually had some Black Stack yesterday because I think they've got a few Black Stack beers or collaboration. Brixworth, which is near Target Field, is owned and operated also by the same family that owns Black Stack Brewing. So, a lot of their IPAs are sort of influenced by Black Stack's IPAs, but you don't have to go to their tap room. You don't have to go to Brixworth. You can just go to your liquor store now because that has been sort of the Achilles heel of Black Stack Brewing. Great beer that everyone wants to collaborate with. They're especially known for some of their IPAs.
But they didn't have wide distribution.
They didn't have the wide distribution.
And now they do.
Yeah, and you can get it all over the state of Minnesota. So just walk into your liquor store and look for Black Stack Brewing or ask them for Black Stack Brewing. And I think you're not going to be able to pick a bad beer. Like their local 755 New England IPA is outstanding. I love their Slopes French Pilsner. I think it's the best Pilsner locally made here. And they've also got pale ale and sours and that sort of thing as well. So stop by Black Stack Brewing. Their tap room is near 94 and 280. Great place. And they often they'll have the Twins game on. Or even easier, ask for them at your local liquor store.
Okay, so bullpen-wise, a couple moves here. We talked with Betsy on Wednesday about Alcala, and I think we all kind of came to the same conclusion, which is this is coming to a head here, one way or the other.
That's right, yeah.
And it did. Actually, I
think it was Wednesday afternoon after that we saw that they had picked up somebody. Yes. We knew somebody had to go.
So they claimed a lefty, 29-year-old lefty named Joey Wentz off waivers from the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was originally 2016, I want to say, Braves first-round pick out of high school. He was traded from the Braves to the Tigers for a reliever named Shane Green like 6 years ago or something as a prospect. Debuted with the Tigers. The Twins have seen him a ton. I mean, he started games against the Twins. He's relieved against the Twins. I looked this up. He has 31 career innings against the Twins, which is not only by far his most faced team, but it represents 14% of his entire major league workload has been against the Minnesota Twins. And that's all, under Baldelli with a lot of these same hits. So, I mean, they knew him pretty well. He didn't work out as a starter in Detroit, struggled. Got waived, got claimed off waivers by Pittsburgh last September. And actually, the weird thing is, first of all, Pittsburgh's terrible. Pittsburgh's pitching beyond, Skeens is not good.
Right.
And he threw, since last September, kind of working a multi-inning relief role for them. He threw like 40 innings with a 3.40 ERA or something for Pittsburgh. And they waived him, which I don't really get. But whatever. And the Twins claimed him off waivers. So what you're getting at is, they claim Joey Wentz off waivers like Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon.
Right.
And he doesn't have minor league options, which means he has to be added to the major league roster. And they sent out a press release that said, Joey Wentz claimed off waivers. He'll be added to the roster tomorrow because he's en route from.
We made room for him on the 40-man roster by putting Lopez on the 60-day IL.
Yes.
But that doesn't get him on the 25-man roster.
26.
Yeah, that's right.
They said the corresponding move will be tomorrow because you don't have to make the move until the guy's actually with you. And he was had been with the Pirates, but was home he told us he was home in Kansas or Kansas City, I want to say. Once he got DFA'd by the Pirates, you got a few days to, collect your thoughts and see your family and all that. So he did that. So he got there Thursday, but in the meantime, they played a game with a roster that someone certainly could have done the math and said, someone here today is not going to be here tomorrow because they're going to go make room for Joey Wentz. And I don't know the extent to which Jorge Alcala was aware of that, but everyone else in there was aware of it, including, the writers and stuff. And so sure enough, they played one game with Alcala on the roster. They didn't use him because he had thrown 40 pitches the night before. That would have been cruel to say, you know what, go back out there. We're going to DFA you anyway.
Right, yes.
So my understanding was the plan would have been to make room for Joey Wentz. They were just going to DFA Jorge Alcala because, again, he's out of minor league options, so he couldn't be demoted to the minors, or they would have done it weeks or a month ago. The Red Sox, as the Twins have done with, Cody Clemens and Jonah Bride this year, they decided we don't want to take our chances claiming him on the waiver wire, so we'll just jump the waiver wire line. And the Twins did that with Clemens and Bride by paying a little bit of money to their teams that had DFA'd them to get a trade done. In this case, the Red Sox sent the Twins a 21-year-old single-A outfielder named Andy
Lugo.
Thank you. Who's I asked around a little bit, pretty marginal prospect, kind of an organizational depth type of guy. He's got some slim chance of becoming like a backup outfielder. He's got some speed. He can play corner infield. He can play the outfield, but not much of a hitter. Kind of a small guy. Doesn't have a lot of tools. But so basically, this is their version of cash considerations.
Basically, yeah.
They told the Twins. They probably sent them a list of some, low minors, non-prospects, and said, if you want any of these guys, we can get it done. So they jumped the waiver wire line. It ends up he doesn't get DFA'd technically. He just gets straight up traded to Boston.
Yes.
Will be in Boston's bullpen because they have to add him to the roster now. The Twins add a C-level prospect or D-level prospect. Who knows? They also dumped his whole salary, which I guess could become a factor come trade deadline. They end up saving
about $1 million, right?
No, it's not that much because he gets replaced by a minimum salary anyway. So it's just the difference. It's like maybe $300,000-$400,000 or something. But sure the Poleads are very happy with that. So yeah, we'll see.
For the cash considerations they said for
makes up for
Clemens and Bride.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I think we've talked a lot about Alcala leading up to this because he's just been so bad for so long now. I mean, the final tally on him since August 1st of last season, he threw 44 innings with a 7.77 ERA. 12 or 13 home runs during that point. I mean, he had basically become unplayable.
I mean, he had gotten to the point where on Wednesday when we were talking with Betsy, we were trying to decide, if he was much longer for the Minnesota Twins, where we openly speculated whether or not he'd have any value and whether or not he might slip through on waivers. Like, is there a chance he's pitched poorly enough that he can actually end up in St. Paul when this is all done?
Go pass through waivers unclaimed, in which case they can just remove him from the 40-man roster and send him to St. Paul, which is relatively common. It's not necessarily common for a veteran, reliever with a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. I actually had heard, as of like 5 hours before the trade, that they felt like there wasn't a trade market for him, that probably they would end up just DFAing him. Now, it only takes one. So the Red Sox just said, yeah, we'll give you a marginal prospect and just take him. I mean, from the Red Sox point of view, like I do not blame the Twins for giving up on Jorge Alcala. Lord knows he was given plenty of opportunity to bounce back. And that's not to say, I'm not arguing that like their coaching with him was spectacular. I don't know enough about that. But I'm just saying in terms of opportunity and leeway to struggle over the course of months and across multiple seasons, he got plenty of chance to get back on track. Correct. So I don't blame them for parting ways.
I mean, frankly, they also stuck with him for a year and a half's worth of injuries.
Right.
While
I mean, did you know he pitched in 7 different seasons for the Minnesota Twins? There's a bar bet that you could win.
Right.
How many seasons did Jorge Alcala pitch for the Twins? I'd have said 4, 5. Now, some of those were 7 innings because he was, injury filled and all that. But also, to flip that, from the Red Sox point of view, I'm not particularly confident that Jorge Alcala is salvageable as a good reliever. But from the Red Sox point of view, you certainly see why he's worth a marginal prospect and an $800,000.
There's a reason the Twins kept giving him chance after chance after chance after chance.
That's exactly
they saw a level of upside there that I'm not convinced he won't eventually reach.
Right. I don't envision any world in which he's getting like key outs in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning for a contending team, but I certainly could see a world where he's just a fully functional middle reliever, a 3.5 ERA type of guy that's getting, medium leverage. So, but also he's 29. Yeah. He's been in the organization for 7 or 8 years. He's got one more season after this where he's arbitration eligible and then he's a free agent. I think it came to a point where from a short-term roster functionality, he was like a unused spot, essentially. Right. Like the specificity of when they felt comfortable pitching him had shrunk to such a degree that it was like true mop. I mean, he was barely being used any differently than Jonah Bride as a pitcher at the end. So
I mean, the reason they ended up making room for him on the roster, I mean, I guess officially it was this Wentz thing, but the concern is just having anybody from AAA, a 4A guy who can throw 3 innings on a somewhat regular basis and swapping them out, more valuable than having Alcala. Well, I mean, when you're at that point,
yes, because he's never been a fit in a multi-inning role, even though they had in previous years tried to sort of round peg, square hole type of thing and shove him into that. It just didn't work. He doesn't have the durability. He doesn't have the health to do that. And theoretically, he is a 1-inning reliever with really good stuff, but they were saving him for these mop-up spots, and then even in mop-up spots, he wasn't able to get through games. He gave up 6 runs in his last outing. They had to bring in Danny Coulomb to get the final out because it was just imploded at that point. So, I mean, I made the argument, 4 days ago, that I would have just kept Travis Adams up and DFA'd Alcala at the time, or turns out traded Alcala at the time. They didn't do that. They sent down Travis Adams without even using him, which is fine. He remains on the 40-man roster. But they functionally did that same thing a few days later. Right. They chose Joey Wentz instead of Travis Adams, but they acquired a guy who's a former starter with a history of being able to soak up innings in relief. Right. He's a lefty from the Pirates instead of a righty from your own system in Adams, but that's the same decision. It's like what you said. We need this 8th and final bullpen spot to at least have the functionality day to day of being able to soak up innings, not to, get key outs, not to pitch the seventh, but at the very minimum, the lowest possible bar is we need whoever's filling that final bullpen spot to be able to give us 2 or 3 innings twice a week when the game is out of hand, one way or the other. And Alcala couldn't do that.
Alcala just had demonstrated the night before that he was unable to do that. Right.
So
and has demonstrated that pretty regularly.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, you'd prefer that 8th and final spot is a usable reliever, but it's not really. And, when their 7th spot has been Topa, who hasn't pitched particularly well. And I think another factor, and this is why I made the argument a few days ago that they should have just kept Adams. And now why I get the Wentz addition, even though I'm not, super high on Wentz. We can talk about him in a second. But I just felt like, when the top 6 or 7 guys in your bullpen are all 1-inning guys, in modern baseball where starters are averaging about 5.5 innings per start, that's not unique to the Twins, you just blow through your bullpen every couple of days. Yeah. And so you need someone to eat innings. And we just spent a half hour talking about the dilapidated state of the rotation. They need innings eaten from the bullpen more than ever at this point, because you're out there trying to get.
Again, we've seen it 2 of the last 3 nights.
Right. You're trying to get through 5 with both Festa and Woods Richardson most days. Right. And if we're being honest, you're trying to get through 5 with Bailey Ober at this point. Yeah. And so you're in a spot where, just from a pure workload standpoint, the bullpen is going to be asked to pitch more innings than they would have been 3 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever. And at some point, you just need someone who can go 3 innings versus 1 inning or 1 2/3 innings, because you can't just be blowing through 5 different guys every game and have a functional bullpen. So I get the Wentz addition in that sense. Not a great debut for him, obviously, although I will note he hadn't pitched in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
His last outing for Pittsburgh was like a 3-inning. I think he even got the win, but the exact type of appearance that the Twins will want from him, which is come in, save the bullpen, pitch, decently for 3 1/3 or whatever. Then he wasn't going to be available for a few days, and then he got DFA'd by them. He went home for a few days. He gets picked up. He joins the Twins. He had together, and he missed like 10 days of action or whatever. Yeah. Not to make an excuse. I mean, he hasn't had the most successful stint in the majors, but he has at least shown a little promise the last year plus with the Pirates since switching to the bullpen full time. Like, if you look at his overall numbers, he's got like a 5.5 career ERA and like 240 innings. But a lot of that damage was done when the Tigers were trying him as a starter, and it just didn't work. Because he was a supplemental first-round pick. He was like a borderline top 100 prospect coming up through the Tigers system. He may have even made a top 100 list or two at some point. Like, he was projected to be a potential, 3rd or 4th starter type. It just didn't work. The control wasn't good enough. He gave up too many homers. But I do think, from a stuff standpoint, he's a 6'5" lefty with like a 94, 95 mile an hour fastball. Yeah. He's got a pretty good slow curveball. He throws a cutter. He ditched his changeup. He told me that the Pirates this spring were like, "You're a reliever now. You don't need 4 pitches. Pick one to get rid of." Okay. And he was like, "I'll get rid of the changeup." So that could be something that the Twins try to tinker with. But he certainly fits the MO of like a functional long reliever. And that's not a high bar. That's not a guy you commit to for 5 years. He might get DFA'd in a week.
I mean, but the thing about, it's, again, we've talked about this in the past. It's one thing to say we've got this person as our designated long reliever, but then you run into situations similar to what we saw, which is he wasn't used for 10 days or something like that, or he ends up getting used and now he's not, and you're taking a look and you're like, well, this guy's no longer available because he pitched 3 or 4 innings the night before. We need somebody available in case we have the same situation in the next 2 days. What do we do? Well, what the Twins have done in the past is that person who's doing the long relief is just some dude from St. Paul, right? And we'll replace him with some dude from St. Paul, but we can't do that with Wentz.
Right, because he can't be sent down. He has no options. That role is a funny one. We should talk about this with like Jarrell Cotton and there's some other guys where the better you pitch in a long relief role, the higher your odds of being cut from the team the next day. Yeah. Because if you're really effective as a long reliever, you will pitch like 3 or 4 innings at a time. They'll just let you keep going. But if you pitch 3 or 4 innings on a Tuesday, you're not going to be available to pitch until like Saturday or Sunday. And in the meantime, like you said, they're going to want a different arm in there.
Right. So you can be fairly flippant when you're just going through guys that you have at 4A that are already on the 40-man roster or have options or something like that. You can't be as flippant as you can with Wentz and the fact that he gave up Alcala to kind of bring him in, and that I don't think they're going. And it feels to me like this at least from the outside, just looking at the transaction, they must see something in him beyond we can just flip this guy back and forth from St. Paul.
Yeah, maybe. Although I will say, he got to them on the waiver wire.
Well, that's true.
And they no longer have a high waiver position because they have a winning record. So he made it 20-something spots through waivers from one of the worst teams in baseball. Cut him.
Good point.
If he pitches well, he could stick in that role. But I don't know that they're going to give him a whole lot of leeway. I think, he'll make a couple more appearances. Sure. I honestly think a decent over-under is like 2.5 appearances for him. Because their thinking might also be, even if we kind of like this guy as a depth piece, if we use him, we're going to want Travis Adams or whoever available for that same type of role. And also, if he passes through waivers, then we can just stash him at AAA. And if he doesn't pass through waivers and he gets claimed, then no harm, no foul. It was like we used some random guy for 3 weeks, and now he's on. It's like be an all-time quarterback.
But he's got to look better than, say, Funderburk, which he didn't really do yesterday. Whereas
Funderburk just doesn't have a history of starting like that.
True, right.
Wentz has a history of starting. He has a history of going multiple innings. I definitely see the logic in picking him up. I just, let's be realistic about waiver claim, basically. Right. Let's see. There was one other. I don't know. We could talk a little more about Alcala, I guess. It's unfortunate in that he never, they picked him up in mid-2018 from Houston along with Gilberto Celestino in the Ryan Presley trade. Yeah. That goes down as a terrible trade on all fronts because Presley became like a 3-time All-Star for Houston. I think that situation in part led to Paul Molitor's departure. So did the losing, but there was a sense with the Molitor managing and coaching staff that kind of the messaging, especially on the pitching front, from the front office and from the pitching department, wasn't making its way successfully from the top down, for getting to the players.
Yes.
It wasn't being communicated to Presley that they really thought his curveball was the key and that they wanted to change his usage a little bit and do all this. And you look at his numbers, and he basically got to Houston, and day one, Houston said, you're a curveball pitcher now. You have a great curveball. You're going to throw that 50% of the time. And he immediately not only made multiple All-Star teams with Houston, but had some incredible playoff runs for World Series winning teams as a setup man and as a closer too. So he blossomed. He went from a decent reliever with the Twins, who had some upside, to a great reliever with the Astros. He's still chugging along with the Cubs now. But, that trade, when they made the trade, Celestino was a single-A outfielder. He didn't pan out too much. We saw him. He just was.
I just looked him up. He's AAA right now.
Yeah, he just wasn't good enough. Alcala, at the time of the trade, was a 22-year-old AA starting pitcher.
Right.
And they kept letting him start a little bit, but the problem with him was durability as a starter, and then also he just didn't have a third pitch that he could use against lefties. And as a starter, that's problematic because they'll just stack the lineup with lefties. Right. He converts to the bullpen the next year, basically full-time, and by the end of that year, he's in the majors.
Yes.
And they called him up.
Still struggled against lefties a little bit,
yes.
But he was working on it. The changeup was starting to come around. And
and the power fastball slider combo against righties was just dominant at times. And he had some, he right away became like a solid secondary setup man for them in 2019, I guess it would have been. Then he got hurt. He struggled for 2 or 3 years with arm problems, elbow problems, pitched a little bit, was sometimes effective, kept getting shut down. Then he comes back finally after 3 years of that, basically. Right. Last year in the first half, has a great first half, a 1.50 ERA, 0 homers allowed in 35 innings. And then the second half began, and particularly once you got into into August, he just was horrendous. He gives up. He blew the game that ultimately sort of began the free fall for the Twins, which is August 17th in Texas. He was the one who blew. I never saw a guy blow a 4 or 5 run lead in quicker time than that. And then he just started giving up bombs throughout the second half, and that rolled into this season. And it's unfortunate. The talent is clearly there. I think the injuries did him no favors. I mean, he just missed so much developmental time and probably pitched often not at 100%. And also, at times his velocity and his control kind of came and went a little bit. But, he's 29 now. He, even after all these struggles, he's still got a, 4-something ERA and 300 career innings or something. And, you watch him, and there's a 99-mile-an-hour fastball and a mid-90s or even upper 90s slider that gets swings and misses. That's a recipe that can work, and I think that's, like you said, that's why they hung on to him for so long.
Yes.
But it's also, at the end of it, why I'm sure they feel very frustrated by not only his recent performance, which has been terrible, but just the idea of we couldn't get this guy healthy,
90% of the way there,
get it to click for him. And that's on Alcala too. I'm not saying that's just a coaching thing, but yeah, that's what happens sometimes with relief.
I mean, I would not be. Listen, when it goes from so good to so bad so fast, it opens the possibility of it going from so bad to so good so fast, right? And so I would not be shocked if he ends up becoming, a reliable setup guy for the Red Sox at some point, or if not the Red Sox, whichever team he ends up next year, because I don't think he's done.
Right.
Like, I think he's got enough.
Nobody with that arm is done.
Right. That's exactly right. He's going to find another home. He was going to find another home this time. He'd probably find another home even if it doesn't work out with the Red Sox. I think somebody's going to find something that's. And in the meantime, the truth is the reason he had options left at the beginning of this year, but lost them midway through April, is because he's been getting 5 years of service time, or almost 5 years of service time, without being sent down to the minors a lot. That's a fair amount of money he's made already. Like, he's already been gotten the rookie minimum, for on those years while he was on the IL for $800,000 a year for several years. It's been not a terrible run for.
By the way, he was sent down like 5 times.
Well, he has
talked
been
about
sent
that a lot
yes.
the previous 2 years. But what you're saying is he still has multiple minor league options remaining,
right?
But you cease being able to use those options for a player who reaches 5 years of major league service time, which, like you said, he reached like April 20th or something like that, which they knew that was coming. That wasn't a surprise. I suspect if they had it to do over with, they would have optioned him the day before that.
They were just shortchanged in coming out of spring training. They were short arms in the bullpen. They had a number of different injuries.
Well, and he hadn't been outwardly terrible yet.
I mean, we spent a lot of the offseason kind of doing the counting in the bullpen going, there's about 9 or 10 guys. I mean, if the Rule 5 guy, Iverson, is that what it was?
Yeah, Castellano.
If he works out, maybe Alcala does start the year at St. Paul.
Going back further, I was somewhat surprised they kept him this offseason.
Right, yeah.
They had an option on him and also arbitration eligibility they could have declined, given how awful he was in the second half.
That's right.
I mean, I get it.
That they signed a 2-year contract with the option thing.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, for all the reasons we just talked about, they thought, let's give him one more chance here at the bottom of the bullpen. It didn't pay off, obviously. So, yeah, that's the situation. We'll see how much Wentz sticks. The other thing you could do with Wentz, because he's a lefty and a long reliever with some starting possibilities, is you could pair him with Woods Richardson or Festa.
Yep.
And I might even tinker so much as, like, if you want to pair him with Simeon Woods Richardson, start Wentz.
Yeah, I was thinking
make the opposing lineup put their lineup to face a lefty, which is going to have a bunch of righties in it.
Yep.
Have Wentz try to get through one time, and then bring in Woods Richardson, who then is facing a lineup without a bunch of left-handed hitters.
Yeah, I like that.
And then have him just go through it one time, at which point, hopefully, you're through the 4th or the 5th inning, and you can just go to the bullpen. Now, that sounds fine, but that requires Wentz starting and pitching well against a bunch of righties. That requires Woods Richardson coming on in relief, which he really hasn't done, and pitching well, which hasn't been a sure thing with him. And it also kind of blocks off 2 of your 13 spots on the pitching staff for what is essentially just one role,
right?
Which is
as well as the guy that you're losing the 8th person in your bullpen.
That's what I mean.
Right?
Yeah, you've sort of folded that into a start.
Right.
And the other thing is, even if that goes well, let's say they each throw 2+ innings, you get through 5 or into the 6th, having kind of paired them together. Well, for the next 3 or 4 days, neither of them are available. So you're going to be tempted then to send or a DFA Wentz anyway and bring up a fresh arm. But yeah, there's a few things they can do. And honestly, he checks that box of just long relief, soak up innings bullpen, which they haven't had for years, really, consistently. He also checks the second lefty box,
yes,
which they also haven't had this year. They've gone for a few days with no lefties.
Right.
They typically either had Coulomb or then when Coulomb was hurt, they had Funderburk. They've rarely had two lefties this year. You know, it's hard to fill the second lefty role and fill the long relief role, just because if you do long relief, you're not going to be available to be a second lefty for 4 days.
Right. That's right.
But if you look at his track record and just raw stuff and all that, he has done pretty well against lefties. He's held them with Pittsburgh over the last year plus to like a 190 batting average. You know, he can get strikeouts. Control comes and goes. He gives up some homers, but you know, the bar for a second lefty isn't huge. You're looking to get a guy who can, you know, face three batters in the fifth or sixth inning, two of which are lefties. So I could see him filling that role too, but I do think that the long relief is probably the bigger priority. Before we talk about Byron Buxton and some more positive things,
yes, Buxton's been
let's
amazing.
talk about our last couple of sponsors here.
BetterHelp. If you are reaching the point where you want to talk to somebody about something, that by itself is an enormous obstacle to overcome for people. It might be that you wake up one day and you're like, things have gotten to the point where I need to talk to somebody about therapy, whether it's, you know, about myself or my relationships or whatever. It feels so good to finally go, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then you recognize there's all these obstacles in the way of you actually doing it. Right.
Yeah, BetterHelp has gotten rid of some of those. Basically, they can set you up with a real licensed therapist, typically within days, and they can also tailor it to whatever you're comfortable with. So if you want to do a video chat, do it. If you don't want to be on camera, you do a phone call. If you're like me and you hate talking on the phone, you can just do a live chat and type back and forth. Whatever you're comfortable with, they can tailor it to suit you. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/Gleeman. That's BetterHelp, HELP, BetterHelp.com/Gleeman.
And our last sponsor is Harry's Razors. To me, anybody can get a good shave once, but what the magic of Harry's is that they manage to get you a good shave every day. It's not just, they make it easy so that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whichever day that somebody's actually going to be approaching your face and touching your face, you are going to be prepared for the close shave, because you're not going to be like, I don't have a very good razor. My razor isn't very sharp. No, it's all been taken care of. You received it in the mail with great packaging, by the way. It wasn't very expensive.
You can order a new one whenever you need it, and they'll just send it right to you instead of going, I don't really feel like going to the store and bugging someone to open a lock case.
Exactly.
I'll just keep this old razor and get a bad shave for another 2 months.
That is the advance in razors. It's odd to say this because, you know, the razors themselves, they've already gotten to the point where they've got 5 blades, including Harry's razors, which is a fantastic 5-blade razor. But what they did is they just made the rest of the experience beyond the razor that much better. So
yes, there's customizable delivery options for scheduled refills as low as $2, which is like half what you pay for other brands. And we have a deal here that you can get a 5-blade razor with a weighted handle. They'll also include foaming shave gel, and they'll give you a travel cover for just $5.
Yeah.
Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally that trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $5 at harrys.com/Gleeman. That's our exclusive link, HARRYS, harrys.com/Gleeman. Go get that $5 trial set. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Buxton, because that's a fun topic. His third inning Wednesday
wow,
is as good an inning as you'll ever see from an individual player.
Right.
He makes a sprawling diving catch in a huge spot in the gap to save at least 2 runs and possibly however many runs.
Right, yes.
And also, very crucially, save David Festa from a start kind of getting off the rails a little bit. And I'll tell you what Festa said about that afterward. Saves at least 2 and possibly more runs with just an all-time great catch. We've gotten used to that with Buxton, but I certainly didn't think he was going to get to that. I mean, that ball was a shot into the gap, and he just laid out and grabbed it. And then about 4 minutes later,
and managed to do so without taking out the left fielder.
Yeah, Willie Castro, left fielder,
Willie Castro
at the last second sort of jumped out of the way and then fell down, but they didn't collide. And then 5 minutes later, 2 men on in the bottom of the inning, hits a 479-foot homer into an area of the ballpark that almost no one reaches.
Yes.
The camera operator botched it because I don't think he was expecting, or they were expecting it.
Yeah.
It is the longest homer of Buxton's career, which is saying something because he's hit some bombs, and the second longest homer across MLB this season. There was a Mike Trout hit one 484 earlier in the season.
I think I saw it was the 5th longest in target field history.
Yeah,
I was watching it. Chris Hockey was at the game that day, and so we were there, and I think we saw that hit, and I saw where it hit, and I said, I think you've seen one of the top 5 longest home runs in target field.
It's just a spot where people don't hit it into the whatever club or whatever it is.
It's the
whatever. I mean, Sano used to hit a few. He's hit a couple there, and he also would hit them into like right center up, where it's like that has to be an incredibly far distance because no one else can do that. And that was one with Buxton. And then also in that game, by the way, had 2 more hits, stole a base, came around to score, made one other nice play defensively. Like it was just a full display of all things that Byron Buxton can do on a field, many of which mere mortals and even great players cannot do on a field. And the beautiful thing is we've seen a lot of that consistently all season from him. And he had a brief, 2-week break because he was dealing with the concussion, and the nature of that injury and the history of Twins players with concussions, particularly, you never know what's going to be when someone comes back from a concussion. And fortunately, he has come back and picked up right where he left off. He's hitting like 340. He's making great catches. He's 11 for 11 on stolen bases and is running quite a bit of late. And the other thing, and he's hitting 480-foot bombs. But the other thing that we've rarely seen from him, he's drawing walks in bunches. He had another one. He had a 3-walk game, first time in his career. He's got like 10 walks over the last couple of weeks. Like if he's adding that as like a viable dimension of his game, and he's got like a 440 on base percentage since coming off the IL.
We've never seen anything like that.
Right. I mean, he's a free swinger. He's a swing and miss guy. He's a power guy. He got kind of miscast early in his career as a get on base leadoff type just because he's so fast.
He's a slugger trapped in a sprinter's body.
But at age 30 now, if he's starting to make a little bit of an adjustment, if his plate discipline is improving a little bit, that would be huge. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to become Joe Mauer or something like that from an on-base percentage standpoint, but him getting on base even slightly more is huge because you see what happens when he's on base. He steals second a lot, and also sometimes he doesn't even need to steal second. He can come around to score on every double and some singles from first base.
Well, and it's just especially for a lineup that's been struggling to score runs, having that extra dimension, just having him be able to work himself around the bases. I mean, as much as we all know about the defense, we all know about the home runs, but that dimension of being able to get on base and being able to manufacture a run in a close game. We've had a lot of close games. This team has had a lot of extra innings games. It had a lot of bottom of a ninth, top of the ninth, extra frame stuff where you need to scratch a run across. And he's the guy that you want in that position.
And he has done that quite a bit. There's been a couple games. There was a Houston game that he basically won with his legs.
Seattle, 2 of those games, I think he ended up being the critical in those.
And now he's hitting leadoff. And the reason he's hitting leadoff, we asked about this with Baldelli and Buxton. First of all, they don't have an obvious alternative to the leadoff spot. I mean, they started the year with Wallner there, who's very much not a traditional leadoff hitter. Then they went with Eddie Julian there, and that didn't work. Now he's back at AAA. Then they've been using Jeffers leading off sometimes, Larnick leading off sometimes. And of late, now they've gone back to Buxton, and he's got a much lower career on-base percentage than you'd want from a leadoff hitter because he's a slugger. He's a swing and miss guy. But Baldelli basically said, he's one of our best hitters. So on-base percentage or not, we want him getting more at-bats than everyone else. And he came up to Baldelli a few weeks ago and said, hit me leadoff. I like hitting leadoff. And not every guy likes it, and not every guy's suited for it. And he said, hit me leadoff. And I do like the kind of ambush jumpstart component. He can pop some leadoff homers. I also just think, you're only leading off one inning. One at bat per game. And so why have Buxton batting third or fourth and you turn the lineup over with like Vasquez or whoever's at the bottom of the lineup, and you still got to have 3 more batters till you get to Buxton. Well, Buxton's one of your best hitters, so you want him as far up the lineup as you can get. The speed obviously plays in the leadoff spot, and he's comfortable and he enjoys doing it, which is a small factor too. But yeah, he's been incredible.
He can definitely make the starting pitcher uncomfortable. He gets on base. Well, first of all, he's been getting on base, which is one thing, and then once he's on base, he's going to make that starting pitcher uncomfortable.
Yeah, he now leads all Major League center fielders in OPS. Defense has been very good. 11 for 11 on steals. Other than the concussion, which he returned from in 2 weeks, essentially.
Right.
He's played pretty much every day all season. Not only by his standards, but by anybody's standards. I mean, they've rarely given him just straight up days off. He's had a few days off, and he had a couple when he first came back from the concussion, which is understandable. But for the most part, and Correa's been sort of the same way, they're playing these guys when they're available. They've changed their tune on that a little bit, in part because the approach of let's give them regular days off to keep them fresh didn't lead to keeping them fresh. Right. So now I think the approach with Buxton is if he's good to go, he's going to go.
Right. He's also he seems healthy like that.
His legs are his knee and his legs are in a lot different shape than they were 2 years ago. I think the
strategy they had of trying to figure out his knee/hip, whatever was going on down there, was probably right to do back 3-4 years ago. But since he got that surgery and they thought they solved the problem off season before last, what we saw the first week of spring training before the 2024 season, when he was walking around and saying, I feel good. Like he seemed effervescent.
There was almost, it was weird because he was in a great mood, like you said, but there was almost like a weird sadness where it's like, how long has he not felt good?
Right. You started to understand. Once you saw what it was like to be pain-free for him, you understood how much he had been in pain. Right.
I never feel more excited about life than the day after I've had like the flu or a bad cold.
That's right,
because you're like, oh my God, I can
hangover.
breathe. Yeah, well, that's your version of that. Yeah. Where you're like, hey, I can breathe normally. Isn't the world a lovely place? I can, the birds are chirping, the sun's out.
And that's what he was like.
That's what he was like. And then you start to think, how long have you had a cold for, basically? You know what I mean? But that's definitely the case. I mean, we saw him try to gut through multiple seasons and sometimes play really well, sometimes be a great player, but we saw little signs of like when he would steal a base, it would take him 30 seconds to get up. We saw, in 2023, DH only didn't really work. Right. And last season he was great and largely healthy other than the one injury in the second half.
Sure,
played 100 games for the first time in a long time. And this year looks even healthier. Like I said, that wood doesn't work. Since we've got this piece of wood, the Twins are like 0-80. 6 guys have gotten hurt. They're going to condemn Target Field. Like, I don't know. I tripped and fell and broke my leg.
We might have to have a ritual burning of the...
We're going to use this wood for something, but it might be the reverse. But Buxton. It's so funny. Like, every time I tweet something about Buxton or we talk about Buxton, the replies are always about the injuries.
Well, just so clear, I'm having trouble getting used to being healthy too, and I'm noticing it. I'm still having trouble getting.
But one of the weirdest reactions and this has been consistent with Buxton, is like you go like, "Oh my God, what an amazing game he just had Wednesday night." Let's say 480-foot homer, diving catch. He stole a base. He went 3 for whatever, and everyone's like, yeah, wouldn't it be great if he could do this all the time if he was healthy? And it's like, brother, he's doing it right now. Watch it. He's doing it right now. He's been doing it all season. What do you mean? It's like you're on a date. You have a great kiss and you go, wouldn't it be lovely if we could have this kiss more often? It's like, you're in it right now. Like, do it. Enjoy it. Like, I don't know why I brought up that, but
you naturally think of kissing.
Actually, come on, John. Let's. Oh, he's fighting me. Oh no. I don't know what that sounded like. But hopefully, something amusing. But that's my thing. Is like when Byron Buxton is healthy and on top of his game. Not only is he one of the best players in baseball, but he is one of the best players in baseball in a way that is rare, even among the greats.
Right, yeah.
The combination of skills and the combination of ways he can win games and impact games and it was on display in the 1 inning Wednesday, but I mean just overall. To be able to rob hits in center field the way he does, to be able to have the highest stolen base percentage in baseball history, and now have your knees feel good enough that you can actually do some running and take advantage of it, and to be able to hit 500-foot homers. And now he's adding some walks. He's getting key hits going the other way sometimes, like in Seattle. I mean, he is just playing at a level that not only is rarefied in terms of just value, but rarefied in terms of the watching and viewing experience.
Yeah,
You could live another 100 years as a Twins fan, and you might not see a guy who has these skills at this elite level as a mix of skill and talent and the ability to impact games on all three phases and all that.
It's also just the style itself is fun.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Really fun. Like,
it's fun to watch a dude sprawl out into the gap, rob a hit, and then 4 minutes later hit a 500-foot homer. That's something you go home and you tell people that you saw.
Right.
Or 10 years from now, when someone says, "What's the best game you ever saw?" That's going to be in the running for it. And I've learned with him especially, but just in general, to kind of not take that for granted and not go, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to see this all the time?" How about watch it as it's happening? Like, don't avert your gaze from it now because you're not sure it's going to be like that a month from now. It's happening right now. And so the impact he has made, and not only just, stylistically, but clutch performances, like multiple times on that road trip, he came through when they were in a spot to maybe lose. And you look at like WPA, you look at his numbers with, I mean, they're very, very good. I think he's leading the team now in WPA, or maybe second on the team. And I mean, he's just been phenomenal. He's already up
and
to
that doesn't count defense.
Right. And that doesn't count defense, I mean, he'd be on another level for that. He's already at, almost 2.5 WAR.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that now, there was so much obsession about his contract, and
that's what I was about to point out.
He makes $15 million a year.
Yeah.
Now,
if you want to know the upside of all those injuries he had early in his career, it's that he had to sign a 7-year, $15 million a year contract, and that next 3.5 years, if he continues playing like this, it's going to be an absolute bargain.
Go look at and now, look, $15 million is a lot of money. Okay, it takes John months to make that. Okay, but it ain't a lot of money in 2025 Major League Baseball. It's not one of the 100 highest salaries in baseball at the moment. Go look at whether this past offseason in free agency, or just if you can find a list of salaries. Go look at the type of guys who are making $14, $16, $18 million a year, especially guys who signed long-term contracts or via free agency. These are not star players. These are third starters. These are, good regulars, and Byron Buxton. And generally speaking, one win above replacement is valued at somewhere between $8 and $10 million. Like, that's what if you want to sign a player in free agency or sign a player to an extension at kind of a market rate, let's say, whatever they've done or you project them to do, you're generally paying big picture around $8 to $10 million per win above replacement. Well, I think he's at like 2.3 WAR already.
Right.
So you can do the math on that.
Right.
He's already been worth like 1.5 times his salary, and we're not even at the All-Star break yet. And look, yes, could he get injured? Yes. But almost every year he's been worth double or triple his salary. Yes. And yet people are still obsessed with $15 million, as if for $15 million in the year 2025, the Minnesota Twins should be guaranteed 150 games of a Gold Glove center fielder who hits 500-foot bombs. They've gotten tremendous value from Buxton, and now he's at a point where he's certainly not out of the woods from a health standpoint. No. I mean, it is what it is. He's someone who gets banged up more than most. But
he's 31.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do think
31 is not that old either.
Well, it's old for a fast center fielder.
You're right.
But not that old for like a podcaster, for instance. But, it's old for like a track and field guy, or there are a lot of, or a gymnast, or a Gold Glove center fielder. Yep. What else? What is 31? 31 is old for like a model, which
Maybe.
We both have experience. We were both pushed out of the modeling industry in our early 30s.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. A plus size model. Maybe we'll make a comeback on that. Right. There's whatever quadruple XL catalog of like shirts and stuff. I feel you and I could really be the poster boys.
I feel like your life kind of started when you were 30.
Sure. And what a life it is. What a life. I'm still sitting here with you. The one constant. But yeah, it's been so fun to watch what a healthy Byron Buxton looks like, whether it's for today, tomorrow, or for however long, and also like the undeniable impact he's made on a team. I mean, think of this lineup and how much it has struggled, and then think of how consistently good and in the lineup Byron Buxton has been, and where this thing would be without him, especially of late, atop the lineup.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more things, and then we will shut up because I have a modeling gig later today.
There you go.
It's a couch modeling gig. It's to show the strength of a couch, what it can hold.
Started the podcast right about the time you turned 30.
That's true.
As I recall.
2012?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
2011 is when August of 2011.
28 then.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't start writing about the Twins until I was 34.
Yeah.
35.
So you're saying Byron can still have a second career as a
podcast
C-level media personality in local market.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly right.
I bumped us up from D level to C level. I wanted to feel good about myself today. A couple other things. So a couple people asking Connor Prelip, who's one of their better pitching prospects, but also has a history of elbow problems, was placed on the AA injured list.
Yeah, I saw that.
But I talked to a Twins official who wanted me to get the word out, he said, that it was a blister on his finger.
Yes.
And they expect him to miss like maybe only one start, but they shut him down for a week or two and he'll be back. They also, I don't think it's the worst thing to kind of limit his workload because he's been making like 3 or 4 inning starts.
Yes.
It's not clear if he's going to be.
They've already been limiting his workload.
Right.
To some
so
extent,
this is a good excuse to take a little break. He's been very, very good at AA, by the way.
Yes.
Like living up to the hype there.
If you're looking for left-handed help for the Twins,
yes,
you might want to look that far down. At this point.
he's basically pitching like once through a lineup or maybe twice through a lineup. 1.5. He's been going 3 or 4 innings. The performance has been great. Low ERA, very high strikeout rate. You look at the velocity readings; they're really good. I mean, this is why they took a chance on him despite his elbow problems because they thought this is a power arm. Coming into the season, it was like he hadn't been healthy, and so a lot of the thought was, well, we just need to get him some innings at AA because he had missed so much time with elbow problems going back to like high school, college. But the view was like, well, if he kind of gets on track and stays healthy, he can move very quickly as a reliever.
Right.
Like maybe second half of the season, he could join the Twins bullpen. I still think that's viable, but he's pitched well enough and pitched enough innings going 3 or 4 most times that you start to go, could he be like a 5-inning starter going forward?
Right.
Because, you don't want to.
They are certainly at least building him into that.
Right.
Like, that seems to be the plan for him.
Because you can go to the bullpen.
Right.
You can't really go the other way of
that's right.
working as a reliever, make him a starter. Very rarely does that happen. But yeah, he's been very promising, but I wanted to alleviate people's fears.
Yeah. We went through the same thing.
The other thing, I don't know how many people have like walked by or seen the press box at Target Field, but it's behind home plate. It's between the second and third levels, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can walk by it, but it's a little bit like the counter at a pharmacy where it's elevated. Like it's not eye level for the people walking by.
Sure.
I think in part because that would be really weird.
Yes.
And also in part because like we're sitting there with laptops and backpacks and stuff. So someone could just be like, yoink.
You'd also have trouble seeing if people were reaching.
So it's like, it's, I don't know how many feet up, but it's like 2 feet above eye level or a foot above eye level. So you kind of see the tops of people's heads as they walk by. And if you want to talk to somebody,
you're a little kid at a counter.
That's exactly right.
That's right. Yeah,
so we're sitting there on first game of the series, maybe. And a guy walks by from our left, and he's walking, going to get a beer or a hot dog or whatever, and he walks by, and he just looks in. And a lot of people try to look into the press box because it is weird to just see 30 people on their laptops. Some people don't realize what it is. But this guy's head is just at eye level of mine. So he just looks in, and he's like waving, and he's like just looking. I'm like, this is the first time in however many years I've been sitting in this press box that someone has just walked by, looked in, and just stared me straight in the face.
Meaning he's very tall.
And I realized it was Luca Garza from the Wolves.
I was going to guess Parker Fox or Luca Garza.
Yeah, it's got to be. And he walked by a couple other times. He didn't make it the full game, but in fairness, they lost like 16 to whatever. So I don't blame him for leaving. But I was like oddly excited to see an out of context Luca Garza. That I told him to bring. I said hello to him. I told him to bring Finch to the next game because Finch has definitely gone. He's a big baseball fan.
Yes,
and he has sat in the section by the press box multiple times, and including he brought Naz Reid once. He brought I forget who else a couple years ago.
We had him at the Gray Duck deck.
Yeah,
well, I believe the Gray Duck deck for a while.
He is a baseball fan.
Year.
He's a beer drinker.
Yeah,
he's a sit outside in the sun guy. Yep. He lives in North Loop or around North Loop. I know. I don't want to give away
sun
too much.
Would be fun. I'd like some sun.
Yeah, there hasn't been much sun. But so I use this to then segue, talking about basketball. The Twins have been holding over the last several weeks a free throw shooting contest among players and coaches. There's a hoop by the batting cages beneath in the clubhouse level that I guess Glenn Perkins bought 10 years ago or something randomly. I don't know why. This is what I heard. I can't attest
sounds like on brand
to these facts. But so they've been holding like a multi-round, weeks-long free throw shooting contest.
Okay.
And it concluded recently during this series. Trevor Larnach defeated Cole Sands, I believe, in the finals. And the prize was Rocco Baldelli ordered a Steve Nash, I think, signed jersey and had it overnighted to present to him because Steve Nash is the all-time leader in free throw percentage among non-active players. Steph Curry, I think, is number one.
Right.
But as Baldelli pointed out, it's a safer bet to get a non-active player because some guys don't want to wear an active guy's jersey if that guy's like killing their favorite team.
Gotcha. Yeah, sure.
So he thought Steve Nash. So he was telling us this in the pregame about how he ordered a Steve Nash jersey and all this. Justin Morneau, who's sitting there, was so excited because he was able to tell everyone that Steve Nash is Canadian. So he's like, I ordered a Steve Nash jersey, 2-time MVP. You know, he's the all-time leader.
Perfect.
And Justin Morneau was like, you guys know he's Canadian, right? Like that. He was very important to him that he pointed that out.
Was that during the Toronto series? Or was that during the Texas series? That
no,
would have been
first game of the Texas series.
All right, well.
But yeah, it had been
Morneau was already off his high of having
Canadians might be worse.
Torontons around for a weekend.
Torontonians? That can't be right. No. Something. Canadians. I think the only people that I've experienced that are more obsessed with one of us, this guy, than Minnesotans might be Canadians. And at least they have there's a national pride element to that where it's like you want to, there's an Olympic aspect or whatever. But I don't know. Nobody beats Minnesotans when it comes to that. It really is.
Well, we've got to make sure that they don't think we're Iowans.
Yeah. Wait, there was Luka Garza from Iowa.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I felt bad yesterday.
Did you tell Luka Garza that he sucks because he's from Iowa? Is
no.
That what you did?
If we would have chatted longer, it would have come out. But there's a couple Iowans in the press box right behind me, so I've had to kind of temper
we all know about your anti-Iowa bias.
Yeah, my crap talking because they're behind me, and I feel like you don't want an enemy behind you because they could just decide slap to the head, laptop to the back, whatever it is,
I've tried to actively hide to you that my ancestors are from Iowa. So
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do it. That doesn't surprise you, I'm sure.
But on the note of Iowa, and then we'll shut up.
That's probably why you hate Iowa so much.
I could feel it coming out of you. That I've always wondered, why do I not like John? He's such a nice guy. Why do I despise him so much? Iowa. After games on, I guess yesterday was a Thursday.
Yes.
Whatever. They play high school games a lot.
Yeah.
After
right.
the Twins game.
Yes.
Every couple of weeks or whatever.
I was wondering if they would yesterday. Did they?
Wow. So during the Cleveland series a couple homestands ago, that everything got rained out.
Yes.
A game got canceled, which I felt bad for. Yesterday, a team from Iowa had come here to play. I don't know who they were playing. So they wait through that slog of a blowout, 16-3 or 4, whatever it ended up being, long game, terrible game. They're all there with their families. They made the drive up from Iowa, and that's a rough one because I don't think Iowa has GPS or even computers yet. So they, just kidding. They played 1/2 inning.
Oh no!
Before the tarp came back on the field.
Shoot.
And then at that point, I left the ballpark and I got caught in a rainstorm going home. So I'm assuming they didn't resume it.
No.
Which I feel really bad.
Yeah.
Now, They get to say they played on target field.
Well, that's true.
They played a half inning.
That's right.
A couple guys got in at bat. There was actually a play at the plate. It was an exciting half inning.
Okay, good.
It was funny. There was a bang play at the plate for the last out of the top of the first inning, and the umpire called him out. Everybody in the press box thought he was safe, and everyone started to do the Baldelli where you put your hands by your ears.
Doesn't happen in high school, no. Right, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so I felt that was my only real empathy I've ever had for Iowans, where it was like these poor kids came all the way here to play a half inning and then sit through a game and rain and all that.
As we were watching that game finish, that slog end up yesterday, we walked in with some people that had come in, and I noticed all these people were kind of dressed with black and yellow or something. That was one of the teams. Yeah. And I said, "Oh, do we have a high school game after the game today?" And they were like, "Yeah," and talked a little bit. And when we're watching the 16-3 game, and I'm looking at the weather forecast, I'm like, "These poor people." Like, I also wondered, like, at what point do regardless of whether or not it's going to be rained out like this one legitimately was. Like, at what point is it just like, it's wet out there and we don't want to ruining our field. Right. And like, are we approaching that point even then?
Yeah. I mean, there are probably people who would prefer the Twins don't allow high school teams to play on the field even in good sunny weather because it's just beating up a field unnecessarily. But I mean, I do think it's one of,
I really liked it.
It's among the nice community aspect things that the Twins do.
Yes.
And I'm sure most teams or some teams don't do that sort of thing, but I've always appreciated
a lot of them are rivalry games too. So it's already one of the bigger games on their schedule, and now they get to have it at Target Field.
It's also fun. There's been some children of like Paul Molitor's son Ben played, I think, for Edina, I want to say, a few weeks ago there.
Yeah.
I think he was the DH, much like his dad late in his career.
Highland Park had was one of the
Is that
one
true?
Of the games I think earlier this year, I think it was Highland Park versus Central.
Well, I can't imagine. That's a hell of a rivalry. That's the Aaron Gleeman Do-Hyung Park.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm almost sure that was one of the games.
Jack Morris versus Dave Winfield. Aaron Gleeman versus Do-Hyung Park.
That's right.
I don't have a third example of that, but yeah. Not a lot of Highland. We had Jack Morris 40-something years ago.
Got to get Jefferson Kennedy.
Which is what? Herbeck?
Yeah, Herbeck was Kennedy.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know, all the hockey players. Mark Parrish.
Okay. They should do North St. Paul versus Forest Lake. The Louis Varland versus Matt Wallner.
That'd be fun, yeah.
Yeah. That would be a good... I don't know. The high school, I don't know how they choose the teams. I'm assuming they're at least making an effort to have sort of high-quality teams.
Right, yes.
But yeah, I don't know how Highland and Central work into that.
I'm almost sure that.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah. I just can't imagine either of those teams being particularly good at baseball. But also, I'm talking from the experience of someone who went there 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, St. Paul's been a bit of a baseball hotbed in the past.
Not those two teams. Those two teams were fodder for Creighton when I was there. We would get 10-run ruled by Maurer. I was the same year as Maurer, so there were many of my friends whose claim to fame was that Maurer like homered off. That was like their best. Like, oh yeah, we got 10-run ruled. I gave up a triple to Maurer. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And yeah, we would only beat them in basketball. All right, we will be back Monday on the Patreon side.
Yes. Yeah.
Patreon. Patreon.com/Gleeman.
Take advantage of all the free content. All of our past stuff is available, so you can you get it right now. You can
Hundreds
get that.
of
You can get that bonus episode of the Denver stuff. You can get a special interview with Betsy Helfand and mailbag with Betsy Helfand.
And we'll have a new episode Monday morning. We'll have a new episode probably Wednesday morning of the upcoming week, and that is only available and commercial free. Only available to Patreon subscribers. We also do like a special mailbag episodes where Patreon subscribers can send in questions and get them answered. And we're like a month plus out from the deadline, the trade deadline.
Good time to join.
The Twins are not playing particularly well, but they're right in the playoff mix still with the deadline coming up. They certainly now have a few more needs than we maybe would have anticipated a month or two ago.
Right.
So yeah, sign up. It's like $2 a week. It ends up being less than $1 an episode. Yeah. It ends up being like 75 cents an episode. So patreon.com.
Less than a cost of a beer at Target Field to try out.
Well, yeah, that's not saying much.
It might be less than 2 months might be less than what cost of a beer.
You can listen to about 20 episodes of our show for the cost of 16 ounces of beer at Target Field.
That's right. Thanks to those folks that kept this episode free, which is BetterHelp and also Harry's. And also a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Black Stack Brewing. It's now being distributed to all of Greater Minnesota. So stop by your favorite liquor store, the Black Stack Tap Room, and grab your favorite brew, or better yet, even try something new.
Goodbye.
Gleeman.